this is what they're like. I don't know if you've read my book or not, but this is what they're like.
I did, yeah.
This is exactly the way Mark always was. And he's like, I called him, he's kind of a sad weather vane. He just sort of tips and goes along depending on what's in his self-interest. And
do you think Piers might pivot to glazing Democrats now that Trump's president? Nope. It's just, he'll follow the online audiences, I would imagine. He's got a formula right now that he iterates on, and he's like successfully kind of like captured the whole like far right outrage machine. And so now they've reverse captured him, and it's just going to be like basically serving the slop back to them like the entire media sphere does online.
This is what he is like. He's always found it irritating that he has to have responsibility for anything or consequences anywhere in the world, and doesn't consider himself a publisher. And so he'll do whatever it takes at whatever time it takes. So I find him disloyal to almost everyone, including back when he threw Trump off the platform. I just don't trust him with anything. And in 4 years' time, he'll switch again if it's in his best interest, financial interest. Really.
I mean, he wouldn't be the first media titan to go where the power and money wind blows. But on the detail of his statement yesterday, it was a pretty extraordinary reversal.
Well, it was also full of. It was a little mendacious on a number of things. By the way, there are a lot of conservative fact checkers in that fact checking situation. And many years ago, he talked about how AI was going to solve this, and now it's community notes that's going to solve this. It's a multifaceted problem. And the real issue is the site is built for malevolent players, and sometimes government, sometimes people, to do whatever it want on the system. It's a system that's impossible to fact check. It's a system that has no guardrails on it, and it's a system in which he uses the First Amendment when it suits him. I actually don't think he's read it, even though it's short and first. Governments shall make no law. Like, it doesn't say Facebook shall make no law. He makes rules and then he breaks them. And he says, with Alex Jones, he did that with all kinds of things. And then he reverses himself. Holocaust deniers was a good example. He told me in an interview, and we got, I was like, well, he said, Holocaust deniers don't mean to lie. And I said, well, that's kind of the definition of a Holocaust denier. But, and then 2 years later, reversed it. And then who knows if he's going to, now he seems to have reversed it again. And so I don't think he has any particular principles or values that are lasting. He can do whatever he wants because he's king of that site.
Well, yeah, to a point, I guess he can. Dave Smith, what did you make of this?
He's king of that site. Piers, he can't be fired ever. His children can't be fired. Let me just be clear. He has total control of that site.
But you're talking to the wrong accent when it comes to kings. We like our kings. We like kings.
I know, you have a better king. I'd rather have Prince Charles running that thing.
We believe in maniacal power. So, yes. Dave Smith, I mean, I found it jaw-dropping, to be honest, notwithstanding a lot of what Cara just said, that she wasn't remotely surprised by the wind blowing, but to actually see him, trot down to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the Trump ring, as it was put, and to then do really what turned out to be half mea culpa and half screeching U-turn over pretty much everything that Facebook had stood for, was pretty spectacular to watch.
Yeah, it was incredible. And, I want to be clear. I think this is...
Always listen to how these guys that lied about being centrists, always listen to how they talk about like Trump and the mega stuff. It's always like, oh yeah, I'm so happy. Like, it's so strange that they... Did Dave Smith admit for the first time, was it next to me when he was cowarding the entire conversation? He was like, I think I have to support Donald Trump, to the surprise of literally nobody. Nobody is surprised about this.
Was pretty spectacular to watch.
Yeah, it was incredible. And, I want to be clear. I think this is a really positive thing. I don't believe in yeah. So like, I kind of want to be happy about it, but all of my instincts are just to rip the guy, because especially because he doesn't acknowledge there's no acknowledgement that he did something wrong or that he's changed his mind on this. It's kind of this just vague, like, oh, I created this to give people a voice. And a lot of people think this stuff went too far. And like, yes, it reminds me of, I debated Chris Cuomo last year, and it reminds me of him coming out and saying like, hey, you guys, this ivermectin stuff isn't horse dewormer, it turns out. It's people medicine. And you're like, yeah, that's what we were all saying at the time, in my world at least. And we got a lot of abuse for that. At one point, I do think it's worth just pointing out what happened over these years, even though I think there's a very positive change.
Now it's time for a dysfactual accounting of history by Dave Smith, where we lie about every single thing, cite to absolutely nothing, and misrepresent the entire historical record. And by historical record, I mean within the last 8 years, in order to suck off Donald Trump again. Oh boy. Also, the whole reason why Zuckerberg doesn't want to take accountability is because the messaging right now isn't so much that the media companies have messed up, or at least the alternative media companies messed up. The messaging is that it was Biden's fault. Biden was the one doing it. That's why Zuckerberg doesn't want to take accountability. Because if Zuckerberg takes accountability, then it takes away some of the accountability from the Democrats. The message can't be that Twitter or Facebook made mistakes. The message is the FBI and the DOJ made them do it.
I was just playing on my show the other day, a video clip. I'm sure all of you guys have seen it. But Mark Zuckerberg blatantly admitted that both Facebook and the FBI interfered in the 2020 election on the Joe Rogan Experience. And, for all of the news coverage, and to some degree, rightfully so.
Post the evidence. Again, remember also, like detailed reports from the FBI, from the DOJ, from investigations, from studies. None of these things matter. It's all fake news. The studies that show that right-wing information was amplified on platforms doesn't matter. Fake news. Leaked emails. None of these things matter. None of these things matter. But if the CEO of the company, who also, by the way, stands to gain a whole bunch by saying the things he's about to say, comes out and sides with the current administration, and then the current popular move towards that administration, crazy that he would come out and say these things. But there's like, we don't even stop for 1 microsecond to second guess his motivations or anything. It's astounding to me. That's astounding to me.
So over the last 4 years, about January 6th, about some of Trump's claims of the election that him and his lawyers were really never able to demonstrate at all. But how about that admission that the FBI came and told Facebook, be prepared for a Russian dump that's coming soon. And then when the laptop came, you have 50 plus intelligence officers signing on to this letter saying that this is the Russian disinformation. And he admitted to censoring people for that. This is like blatant.
Just remember that letter that was publicly published, right? That was after like companies like Twitter had already put the laptop story back online. The 50 letters or whatever, that didn't, the 50 whatever people signed letter, that didn't come before, that came after the laptop story. But
election interference by the FBI and one of the biggest tech companies out there. I mean, you know, I would think if you're going to reverse that, it would also come along with like an apology and some admission of what you were a part of.
That just nothing he said. There's not a shred of evidence for any of this other than Zuckerberg going out and cucking himself out with these public statements now. But no evidence, nothing leaked, nothing published by Zuckerberg, who would have access, by the way, to all of these emails, to all of this. Zuckerberg could very easily publish any of this information, I would imagine, or at least reference it. But it's always just like this vague that MAGA sloppers like Dave Smith love to.
You know, he says he created the site to give people a voice. You robbed your fellow Americans of their voice in a very important, crucial point in American history.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was a New York Post columnist at the time that all went down with their exclusive on Hunter Biden's laptop, which turned out to be a completely genuine story and certainly wasn't rushed.
We're going to hear this Hunter Biden laptop, genuine story. Do you think in a single time in this entire thing, they're going to bring up the fact that the Burisma investigation started because of this guy, this informant who lied about everything involving Burisma? Because this came out like not even a month ago. Alexander Smirnov entered his plea to a felony charge in connection with the bogus story, which was about the phony bribery scheme involving President Joe Biden and his son Hunter that became central to the Republican impeachment inquiry in Congress. But this is what kicked off the whole Burisma stuff. It was all built on a lie. But we all knew that because the Republicans investigated this for the better part of the last decade and found nothing. That's why there are no charges. That's why we only have these weird tax things. There's nothing. But I hope we don't bring that up a single time here.
And disinformation, and the way that all played out was quite extraordinary and pretty terrifying to see that the New York Post.
Although, guys, come on, tech companies make mistakes the way publishing companies make.
But that wasn't a mistake, Carol, was it? I mean, it wasn't. They actually, hang on. My point. They actually banned the New York Post X account completely. Yes, they did. If they didn't take down that.
Do you think that he's going to bring up that it was for less than 24 hours? The timeline? Do you think that'll ever be brought up? It won't. People were saying this woman is crazy. I don't know anything about this woman. I don't think I disagree with anything she's actually said so far. I didn't disagree with any of her opening, but I can't tell if she's slanted in one way or another, but I don't think I disagree with anything. But yeah, remember, no mistakes. Everything is done intentionally. Everything is done malevolently. Everything is evil. All of this is, yeah.
Let me bring Tim in. You've been waiting patiently. Tim, your response.
Free speech is a principle. When we say that Facebook...
Tim has no principles.
Tim Pool defends Destiny's ban.
Crazy. The free speech advocate?
There's no way. This must be taken out of... This is the part where they try to manipulate you for being a good person into letting evil succeed.
Huh. Weird. I thought he was a free speech absolutist.
Well, not if you're evil.
Oh,
you have to suppress Satan.
And who decides if you're evil? Tim Pool does.
Tim Pool.
Absolutely based. Tim doesn't understand anything about free speech. I'm not even convinced that he's an American citizen. I don't know if these guys are all like fucking salt or whatever. What's that? Where they're like children that are like bred in other countries and then they end up being swapped out for American citizens as like secret like sleeper agents or whatever. They always show themselves, they always tell on themselves too. As soon as they start bringing up like the First Amendment or bringing up like freedom of speech, like these people have no concept of anything about the country or America or freedom of speech or anything. These are like sleeper agents against the Republic.
Let me bring Tim in. You've been waiting patiently. Tim, your response.
Free speech is a principle. When we say that Facebook, X, Twitter, whatever platform is silencing free speech, we are not talking about the First Amendment. The First Amendment protects multiple rights, of which one of those is free speech. So this constant conflation of a private company isn't violating your First Amendment. I'm not going to bring up the First Amendment. I'm going to go on a platform, I'm going to express my ideas and share news, and if they silence me, they are violating my free speech. Now,
like in response to that, she should just start screeching at the top of her lungs. Just scream. She should just be screaming. And she should do it until they mute her mic. And then when they unmute her mic, she should say, was he just attacking my freedom of speech? Is this good freedom of speech? Like, is that what you mean when you say freedom of speech? That every single person has an equal right to every single platform to say every single thing they want at every single point in time? Or
more importantly, this argument about, you mentioned there's a fever dream on the left and the right. I want to make one thing clear. Mark Zuckerberg coming out and saying that now we're going to have more free speech or whatever it is he's trying to say. This is not a pendulum swing. This is not the weather vane. Certainly, I do believe the man is just bending the knee to whatever power structure he sees. But if we were actually going to see a pendulum swing in the other direction, they would keep the fact-checking program, ban the liberal news outlets, and only allow conservative outlets to fact-check posts on Facebook. When you look at all sides, when you look at ground news, the majority of U.S. fact-checkers had a liberal bias, and only one, which was associated with Daily Caller, was considered to be conservative-leaning.
So this is just like the standard 75 IQ or Russian agent talking point that, like, yeah, most of the fact checkers lean left. Well, what if one side is lying more than the other? I mean, what do you do then?
And when numerous outlets on the right made attempts to get access through Pointer to the fact-checking system, they were denied that. So now, once again, what do we see? When real quick to another point, back to the First Amendment issue, I just want to add, the government had backdoors into X and Facebook where we actually got to click the link and go to the login portal for the federal government to go into Facebook to flag posts. And there was an instance where if you said the name Eric Charamella on YouTube or Facebook...
Excuse me, what? What is he even referencing here?
I just want to add, the government had backdoors into X and Facebook where we actually got to click the link and go to the login portal for the federal government to go into Facebook to flag posts. Consistently seen a dominant liberal or Democrat party bias on these platforms, and when the problem is quote unquote resolved, you get neutrality. There's been no circumstance where we have seen a right bias or a conservative bias or a pendulum swing in the other direction. So Mark Zuckerberg right now is declaring neutrality.
Remember, it's always essential. This goes into the normalization as well, and the centrists have done it. The centrists, right? All of these centrists are conservative. They're hard MAGA. Like, they're not even soft MAGA. They're hard MAGA. But they present themselves as being like the center, the normal, the ordinary, the apolitical, the nonpartisan, and that gives them it reframes the conversation so much, right? Like, even walking into the room, somebody like me is like considered hard left, far leftist, crazy leftist, and I'm not even remotely like a socialist or communist, but I'm already like far left just because that's where the conversation has been framed at. So it's really essential that when he says things like the pendulum hasn't swung and you're like, wait, what do you mean? It obviously has. He's viewing people like Elon Musk as like non-political people, or he's viewing people as himself and Joe Rogan as being either like still kind of liberal, like center left, or like centrist. That's what they're always doing.
He's not actually swearing fealty or kissing the pinky ring of Trump.
Well, fascinating.
Are you kidding me?
Dean, over to you.
The idea that what Mark Zuckerberg is doing is part of the plutocracy. It is part of the oligarchy. They're going down there and giving $1 million each to Donald Trump, Tim Cook, Jim Bezos.
It's just such an unbelievable. What's happening, dude? What is it? Over $200 million. That was 5 days ago for the inauguration for this giant like dictator authoritarian event. Like, the people who is there a list of the people who've donated so far to this? Like, it's just so insane but like MAGA will look at this and say like, oh, it's okay. Why does Trump need money for his inauguration? So he can throw like basically a fascist authoritarian style party for him being inaugurated. To be fair, it's normal that incoming presidents will have an inauguration and a lot of people donate money to it. But I think the next most expensive one was like $60-some million. And I think that this was so far has raised over 200 million. Why did all the big companies go against him on his first run and now they do a 180? Well, because Trump has signaled. Remember what I said before when we were talking about preemptive strikes? And I'm like, if you're going to have like a policy of preemptive strikes, people need to know about it because it's the whole point of the preemptive strike is a threat to deter the action. Donald Trump has said over and over again, he goes after enemies. He's going to go after people that like attack him. He's going to open the defamation and libel laws. He's already sued people that said things he doesn't like about him. He's already said he's going to do this. So if you are a company, I mean, you probably should be trying to suck up to Donald Trump because you don't want to get on his bad side because he will come after you and he will up in the ways that they said the Democrats were other companies, but didn't actually happen. But it will happen probably, or at least people think it's going to happen under Trump. So everybody has to kiss the ring, basically. Trump says Mark Zuckerberg is probably responding to his previous threats by changing Meta's direction. Zuckerberg recently dined at Trump's Mar-a-Lago club, part of a larger wave of tech CEOs hoping to reset relations with the incoming administration. Meta is also donating $1 million to Trump's inauguration. Trump's first administration and several states teamed up in 2020 on a major antitrust lawsuit against Facebook. Oh, also, remember all that Section 230 and how important it was to get rid of Section 230 to protect the internet and all that? They'll never talk about that again. We're done talking about Section 230. As long as they're like doing good by the conservatives, they're okay to act like exactly how they're going to act. As long as they're cool with yeah. In 2021, Trump, then a former president, sued Facebook and other platforms for banning him in the wake of the January 6, 2021 Capitol riot. They've also been highly critical of Zuckerberg and Priscilla Chan's charitable giving ahead of the 2020 election to help local election officials deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. People are saying that you can't post the article right now about Adrian Dittman on Twitter. Is that actually true? Can somebody try that in my chat and post a screenshot? We are watching him closely, Trump wrote in his book earlier this year in a section about Zuckerberg. And if he does anything illegal this time, he will spend the rest of his life in prison, as will others who cheat in the 2024 presidential election. It's a pretty fascist statement. Future leader saying that he's going to lock up people that say bad things about him forever in prison. But, you know, I'm curious what that quote is from. Like, is this here like somebody saying that they heard Trump say this, or somebody try and post that article, that Spectator article on your X account? I'm curious if you can. Republicans must pass the SAVE Act or go home and cry yourself to sleep. Non-citizen illegal migrants are getting the right to vote, being pushed by crooked Democrat politicians who are not being stopped by an equally dishonest Justice Department. Our whole voting system is under siege. Harmeet and David, go to court and get this stopped now. The Dems can't win on their policies. The only way they can win is to cheat. They do it at every level of government, and they do it well. That's how they get an incapacitated moron like Joe Biden elected, get tough RNC Michael W., Speaker Johnson, and all state and local Republican politicians. The Justice Department is corrupt and won't do a thing to help. They have no shame. All I can say is that if I'm elected president, we will pursue election fraudsters at levels never seen before, and they will be sent to prison for long periods of time. We already know who you are. Don't do it. Zuckerbucks, be careful. Like, this is like literally, this is just like a straight out, like, these are just like authoritarian, like, it feels stupid to even say, because we're past, like, these are like Hitler tier statements now. We're past the point of like, this looks like kind of like, this is just the thing. This is just like the worst. Well, we're at like the right before the worst. The worst is him actually doing it, I guess, now. But in terms of like rhetoric and everything, this is like maximum rhetoric. Like, we've maxed out on it now. This is as bad as it can ever be. And then now it's just seeing if he follows through on his actions, basically.
So, Jeff Bezos, you have Elon Musk, who's been the biggest oligarch of all. They're bending the knee. They're doing whatever he wants.
And then Elon Musk, like a good oligarchical puppet. The SAVE Act will safeguard our elections by ensuring only American citizens vote in federal elections. Here's what the legislation does. Elon Musk retweet. Those who oppose this are traitors. All caps, traitors. What is the penalty for traitors again? Keep in mind, this is the same guy who's friends with the guy who's going to come into the administration and pardon all the J6 people.
I wish that on the left and the right, we could put aside politics and say we need a system where big money is taken out and the power is given back to the people, to us. And then we can fight fairly on the issue of oligarchs spending millions and millions of dollars to corrupt our elections. And on the right, you don't like George Soros? Okay, let's ban his money as well. I'm fine with that. Mark Zuckerberg, what he's doing is bending the knee because he is a fear.
But I think deep down, they wouldn't be okay with that, because I think deep down, I think they know that it's not true. Well, the content creators know that they know 100%. Like, Dave knows it's not true. He's a liar, or foreign agent. What's the Russian version of Timothy? I just need to refer to them by their...
Timothy.
Is that even a name in Russian?
Timothy. David.
I can't pronounce this shit. Timmy and David over here are collecting their fat stacks, so they know this is bull. I think even the average Republican, I think, knows it's kind of bull too, right? Like, the only time you're ever hearing about George Soros is when a conservative is bringing them up. Like, Elon and Zuckerberg and all these other guys are so visible. They're so visible. They're so visible.
You don't like George Soros? Okay, let's ban his money as well. I'm fine with that. Mark Zuckerberg, what he's doing is bending the knee because he is fearful.
Nobody will engage with that point.
He's afraid to put him in jail his entire life. That's the back to the First Amendment. The guy who went to jail for the rest of his life. A guy who threatened ABC and CBS. A man who threatened Donald Trump Saturday Night Live.
Who is this? I don't even know who this guy is. But yeah, no one will engage with any of this. Purists will ask a clown question, and then they'll just kind of like move on.
After the comedy show canceled. So he is not a bastion of free speech. He is a strongman leader, a potential dictator, and they fear him, but they're about making money. So Mark Zuckerberg now is changing these rules and putting Dana White on, Trump's big buddy, on the board at Meta to make Trump happy. Leave him alone so he can make more money. Same thing with Bezos. Same thing with Cook. The list goes on. We live in an oligarchy, a plutocracy, to be accurate. I don't know why on the right you're not angry like I am about the wealthy controlling our collective.
We are. And then the next line, right, is the script. I can't do the Russian translation, so I'll just read it in English. The next line for the script is, we are very angry about all of these things. We realize that this is a really bad thing. However, you have to understand that this has already been going on. The Democrats have been doing this the entire time. We're just trying to catch up.
These are people. Let's get their money out and we can fight over the issues. I'm all for that.
This is the funny thing about what left and right really means. I completely agree. Billionaires, millionaires dumping tons of money to manipulate this is a bad thing. What I'm talking to specifically, when I'm saying kissing the pink ring, if you want to make the argument that they're donating money to his inauguration and things like that, let's have that conversation. But Donald Trump, if this is Mark Zuckerberg trying to placate or please Trump, and he's settling with, I will let people speak, that's Trump accepting neutrality. If Zuckerberg was actually going to try and play this game that we had seen over the past 8 years or longer with Facebook, he'd say, you know what, we're going to bring on 10 new fact checkers, the Daily Wire, Breitbart, National Review, and we're going to give them preference, and we're going to remove PolitiFact and Pointer's authority. But that's not what he's doing. He's
because they've already, the left has already done all these horrible bad things.
saying you can finally post again, which it's funny because when he basically downranked politics, he nuked his own platform, and it made most podcasters abandon the platform as a place where you couldn't do business anymore. So again, you want to talk about money? I agree.
All my friends have posted about Palestinian issues, about Gaza, the suffering in Gaza, and the West Bank. Where my family lives in the West Bank under occupation, our stuff is banned. We get thrown off the platform of Meta, of Facebook, of Instagram. Let's not play games here. These are oligarchs who have a financial motivation for what they're doing. Tim, you know that. Dave knows that. Karen, we all know this. We're on board. What are we going to do about it? We live in a new Gilded Age with a rise. We're going to rise up with a backlash and have reform. We're going to let them control our collective destiny and be their serfs. That's our question.
Well, I think Dean touched on something that's very important. And Pierce, you know, I've said this like so many times.
We're about to get. So Dave has like 12 libertarian fans left, and they're like, Dave, we remember when you were a libertarian and you were principled. Dave, please. And now Dave is about to pay his 10 seconds of lip service to, yeah, I guess some of these billionaires are maybe bad, before he pivots immediately back to criticizing the left. Let's see.
On your show that in many, oftentimes people think of the divide as left and right, but the reality is usually that the divide is between the regime and the dissidents.
Yes.
And so the point that you're making, Dean, about if you are critical of the current policy, which is to support Israel in their war in Gaza, then yes, then you're on the other side of the regime on that issue. Mm-hmm. And same if you're against supporting the war in Ukraine. But look, so it became, look, the thing that was the worst year of censorship was 2020. Okay. And in 2020, I mean, this is when I had a private group.
Keep in mind the disconnect. Okay, so we did the Israel thing. The disconnect, 2020, just one of these, please, she's my spirit animal. I just need her to say, 2020 was the worst year in censorship. The worst. Dave Smith made that claim. 2020 was the worst year in censorship. Who was the president in 2020? Please, God, ask that question. Or this guy, who's the guy in the middle, he can ask the question. Please, God, one of them ask the question. Please, God. Because I guarantee it. If it was Biden or Obama or Harris or whatever, or Clinton, if one of them were president, remember in 2020 when Hillary was president? Remember in 2020 when it was Biden's administration?
For supporting listeners of my podcast on Facebook that got completely nuked, because you literally, I remember the video that got nuked were two doctors. This was in April of 2020 who were talking about how the ventilators were killing people. And this wasn't like an accusation of a conspiracy. Nobody was saying that like doctors meant to be killing people. And of course the doctors realized.
Excuse me. Somebody please link the video that he's talking about. Because if it's the conspiracy that when you put somebody in a ventilator, they're going to die. I've heard people talk about this, but it was especially in the early days of COVID, resources were already limited. If you were going on a ventilator, you were in a rough spot. You probably were going to die. But it's not because the ventilator was going to kill you. It's because you need a machine to help you breathe. You're in dire straits at that point. It's like saying if you put somebody on bypass, their chances of renal failure or whatever the else is way higher. The chances of somebody dying is so much higher as soon as you put them on bypass. Yeah, no like he needs bypass. He's in a bad condition right now. Same thing with a ventilator. I thought, my understanding is the early ventilator survival rates were like 10%. I think they're up to like 40 or 50 now, but it was dire straits. But I want to know, somebody please find me the video that he's referring to. Just two doctors. I bet both of these were like COVID Front Care Alliance people, like the misinfo doctors.
It wasn't like an accusation of a conspiracy. Nobody was saying that like doctors meant to be people. And of course, the doctors realized they were right and ended up changing course. But the point is, it had nothing to do with left or right. It was like, we're doing lockdowns. This is the policy of the regime. And if you're out there opposing this policy, you're going to be silenced. And just to the one point that was made earlier about misinformation from Iran or China or any of these things.
Oh, we're coming back to this. What did I say? There were two chairs. One is either, well, the US does this, either to enemies or to ourselves, or that pales and it's not even that big of a deal. It's like not that big of a deal to us, okay? Which chair? Is it going to be one of the two? We came back to this. Thank God we came back to this. Or is there another position that I'm about to discover?
Silence. And just to the one point that was made earlier about misinformation from Iran or China or any of these things, I'm a libertarian. I don't like governments much anywhere. And all of them are guilty of misinformation.
There it is. Yeah. He's just, I wonder how much he gets paid. Me, well, I don't need the money, I guess. It would be nice, though. I think I could do it better than either of these two guys. Listen, Ivan or whatever the fuck. Pay me, okay? And I can write all the scripts for these guys. Well, you probably only write one script because they always all have the exact identical talking points. I could do these talking points better, though. And I can make it like more fun. You don't need to, though. I'm sorry. Everything I'm saying is a waste of time because this is good enough. This is enough for a maggot to hear that in 2020, to hear that 2020 was the worst year of censorship in U.S. history, apparently, and to not even think, well, whose administration was it?
And lying. But the point is that we were talking about our government, who were the ones involved in the misinformation, claiming that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. That was the lie.
Yeah.
And so you've got the...
Ironically, that was the disinformation.
You're being willful.
Were the ones involved in the misinformation, claiming that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. That was the lie.
Yeah.
And so you've got the...
Ironically, that was the disinformation.
You're being willfully naive. This is a worldwide information war going on with these companies.
We can't talk about this. I don't know who she is. People in chat keep saying I disagree with her on a lot of things, apparently. She's about to bring up... This is what I'm saying. She's like the... I don't even know how long she's spoken on here. Her talking point, this is the only stuff we should be talking about. These are the good conversations. There is a worldwide information war going on right now. We don't even acknowledge it in the US because the left is too scared of Russiagate and the right has weaponized foreign actors for factious division in the US because it's benefiting them. So we can't even talk about it. There is a information battleground right now in the world. But like literally, the right welcomes it. Like literally, not literally in the figuratively sense, but literally in the literally sense. Donald Trump wanted to ban TikTok. And as soon as he saw that TikTok was helping him, now TikTok is great and he doesn't want to ban it anymore. Like as long as the foreign misinformation is helping me, then I want to be okay with it. So we can't even talk about the massive landscape of international cyber intrusion and misinfo shit. We can't even have that conversation. And yeah. So whatever she's about to say is going to get ignored. And
you're being willfully naive. This is a worldwide information war going on with these companies. And Tim knows this. Tim knows this. Like they're infected everywhere. Many years ago, I wrote a column about 7 years ago about TikTok and the possible national security issues surrounding it. I got pilloried for it, anti-China, this and that. And I said, well, it makes sense that they would come here because they have this massive landscape in the United States that is so porous.
Oh, no, we're not doing anything else tonight. I moved it to tomorrow, didn't I? Oh, I need to change the daily thing.
And so easy to manipulate and so easy to enrage whatever side you're on, that it's almost laughable how much we're all the victim of in many ways of the ability of our incredible innovation, right? And the problem is the people making the decisions. Like you can debate all you want whether he should have taken Trump off of Twitter during the things. Everyone has a different opinion. But the fact of the matter is, my issue was 2 people made that decision in our country to do that. Mark Zuckerberg and Jack Dorsey. 2 people got to decide something that is which is a much bigger debate that has to happen within our country. It is about the concentration of power at the top. And right now, Elon Musk is paying $2,000 a night to be.
Yeah, and that is something to be concerned about, right? I think I even said it when it happened, even though I hate him, and I still hate him, and I'm praying every day for things. The idea that I can't see what the president of the United States is putting out because the social media platform banned him, that's a really interesting world to live in. There's a lot of power there. That's a very spooky-ish, that's just a weird thing. That's a weird environment to exist in. And yeah, that's a conversation that would be good to have. But these guys love it. As long as they're banning the people that we don't like, then we're good to go.
Be 300 feet away, or probably more, from Donald Trump. We can't do that. We can't have the same thing. They're all handing over money, and Donald Trump likes money, apparently, from what I've read. And they're able to...
Look at how upset he is. It's like he's bullying his like big brother. No! He's like, no! Look at how mad he got when she said that. There's like a visceral response. He's so upset about it.
And Donald Trump likes money, apparently, from what I've read. And they're able to access and get what they want, which is no ability to have privacy laws to protect consumers, no ability to have new antitrust laws, for example, that are critical to creating innovation. So
none of those things are coming. None of that's coming.
both conservatives and liberals can create new media companies. They can quash us because there's so many laws that aren't passed. And let me just say, there's one industry in this country, in a capitalist society, that has everyone else has to have some regulation.
Media is my guess.
Some of it good, some of it bad, but every other one has to have it, except for the tech industry. There's exactly 0 laws on the books about them. And the law that...
Oh, she's just saying who's not. I'm sorry. I thought she was going to say who should be regulated in every country. She's saying who's not regulated. All the tech companies, yeah. Which is also why, by the way, all the tech billionaires and giants are jumping in bed with Donald Trump. Because if they all pay him off and they buy him, then hopefully no regulation, nothing that's going to restrict any of these like AI ventures or any of these crypto ventures, any of this bull.
That exists protects them from immunity. Can you imagine? I'd like that. I'm sure Peters would like it. Rupert Murdoch would love it.
They're like, hold on, excuse me, wait a second. Excuse me, did you just insult one of my 2 dads?
You opened this by saying I was being naive and then just totally sidestepped my point and talked about other things, some of which I don't disagree with.
I think you're naive that foreign governments see this and think candy stores. Oh, sorry, I don't know if I can say that. They say candy store and look at our country that way.
Again.
Yes, you're right. Now he needs to, now remember, Dmitry and Ivan and Natasha, okay? Maybe they're in his headphones right now, okay? That's okay that Russia is doing like bad things, but remember, the US is doing it even more, or at least just as much. Remember, the US is doing it just as much. Don't ever let him forget that. Don't deny Russia does bad things. Don't ever do that. That's a sucker's game. But just always make sure to say that the US does it just as much or more. Always make sure you say that. Always make sure you say that. Always focus on how bad the US is. It's a horrible country, terrible place. Everything about it is horrible and bad. Always remember that.
And this again, that still has. How is that naive? I didn't argue, but I'm still missing the naivete. I didn't argue with that.
Is that we are in an information war with these countries, and if we don't understand that we have to have given that the U.S. Companies are at the center of it, we have to have some way for our government and these companies to talk to protect U.S. interests, at least in the
yes. But you're dodging my point. You're dodging my point, which is that the American people.
I'm sorry, I lost an information, but go ahead. Go ahead, sure. Teasing you.
Okay. All right, fine. Well, my point is that American people are also in an information war with our own government. Yes. And that has actually been the most dangerous enemy in this information war.
It's always the worst. America is a horrible country, dog shit country, bad government, bad people, bad actors. Everybody's always horrible. It's always worse than the US. Good job, comrade. 4,000 million rubles have been deposited into your Russia PAL account. Thank you. Good comrade. Good job, comrade.
I appreciate that, Destiny.
All right. Bye. Remember to hit that like and subscribe, and don't forget the notification bell so that my videos show up right in your feed.